So today we're going to talk about why dating sucks, particularly for men, and what you can do about it. Does dating suck? Yeah, it does. Seems to be agreed around the world that the modern dating scene has kind of gone down the toilet. Might be the worst it's ever been in recorded history. I don't think that's too far-fetched to claim. This claim's backed up by the escalating divorce rates. They're well over 50% globally now. The increase in adults who identify as single and lonely and depressed, and the decreasing birth rates. All of this could probably be traced back to unsatisfactory or ineffective dating practices. There's clearly a rise, I think, in pessimism around dating and relationships in general. Kind of growing dread that being single is like a life sentence that's very hard to get out of and escape from. Some people are stuck there, even if they're decent people, and it's impossible to escape. The only alternative is to remain single unwillingly or get into toxic relationships that eventually lead to very expensive, messy divorces. And whenever I dare to criticize the red pill and men going their own way, MGTOW perspectives on dating, specifically the main idea that women really just aren't worth having in your life and that sex is all that matters and relationships are bullshit and all that kind of stuff, I just get this huge range of negative responses. But among all that hate and misspelled, poorly grammatically crafted comments, I also get some decent yet disillusioned guys who really struggle and are hopeful, but becoming pessimistic because of their experiences. And I want to help them out. Is there any hope? I think there is. There are still people out there getting into great relationships. There are still people out there who have happy marriages. You hear the divorce rate of 55%, but you don't hear the 45% who made it. What's happening with them? You hear of all the horrible dating experiences that you and your friends are having, and yet you see people clearly who made it all the way through to getting into a relationship. It can be done. So what's happening with the successful ones that isn't happening with you? So for those of you who feel hopeless when it comes to dating and you're starting to wonder if you're going to die alone or end up in some miserable relationship that you have to tolerate because it's the best you can get, let's talk about your options. Let's start with my opinions as to why it doesn't work for some people, and in particular, the kind of things you might be overlooking that is making it so much harder for you than it needs to be. Location, location, location. This is not talked about enough. There's basic foundation of where you meet people is not even really registered in all the talking head influencer type discussions on dating, and yet it's probably the most critical factor. The most basic logistical issue is you're meeting people in the wrong places. I had previously assumed that people with dating problems, it's mostly some sort of intimacy issues they have or some sort of cognitive functioning issues and social struggles in terms of communication. And while those things do play a part, sometimes quite a big part, which we'll talk about, first and foremost, you've got to make sure that you're actually meeting the right people. The greatest problem that most guys have with dating is the narrow range of women that they're meeting in a subconsciously limited way and their terribly limited choice of dating arenas leads them to only have a small niche of kind of the worst woman. And so, of course, with your biases, you're going to think that's all women, but it's actually just all the women in your life. And the two arenas I'm most speaking about, online dating apps and venues where there's alcohol, like bars and clubs. This is where a lot of guys meet most people, and that correlates quite highly with having a terrible dating experience. So most people are trying to meet a partner through online platforms that are businesses trying to sell you something, that focus on single people and focus on social media, or in real life situations where nearly everybody is consuming drugs and alcohol and going out late at night. So for those of you who are struggling, I want you to think, when's the last time you tried to initiate a conversation with a relatively healthy, confident stranger in a social setting where you are completely sober face to face? But too many of you, the answer will be never, or a very long time ago, or very rarely do I do that. And if that is the case, if you find that you very rarely meet people in person, face to face, sober, and you have bad dating experiences because you're mostly in online apps or going to bars and clubs where people are drunk, maybe your answers lies in there somewhere. So solve this location problem first. Commit to never again trying to find a partner online. Really, as terrifying as that sounds, and your fear of rejection is like panicking right now. Okay, it's just very rare that somebody finds a good partner online. It can happen, but compared to the number of times it doesn't happen, the attempts to kind of success ratio is horrific. I wouldn't be surprised if 99.99999 recurring swipes on Tinder do not lead to a relationship. It's a terrible return on investment. And to never again try to meet partners, potential partners, at a place where alcohol and drugs are consistently consumed. Think sober, as horrifying as that might be. To finally have to actually overcome your social anxiety and meet people with confidence rather than with medical support, you might say. But hey, if you actually want a relationship, you got to pay for it. And in fact, avoid any situation where the main point is to hook up with other people. This is what the dating apps have in common with bars and clubs is people are going there to try and get someone, try and get laid. They're bringing that sort of neediness and insecurity and loneliness with them. This is not the healthiest environment, isn't it? You think of an online dating app, who is socially abundant and a good communicator and healthy and confident on those apps? Why would they need to be on those apps? They're not. The other people are on those apps. People who struggle to talk, people who are lonely and desperate, people who are just trying to get laid. Those are the kind of people who are on the apps. They're the only kind of people on those apps. So you're pretty much limiting the pool of potential partners to the least healthy, psychologically speaking. This might be controversial to say, but bars, clubs, online dating apps, this is where unhealthy, traumatized, socially deficient people congregate. Doesn't mean there aren't some exceptions on there. There's always exceptions, but the vast majority of people on there are not going to be psychologically or emotionally well equipped to have a good relationship. And hey, that's where you go, right? How well are you doing psychologically when it comes to relationships and socializing? Extrapolate that out. Why are you on the apps? Why are you going to bars and clubs and taking shots to try and give yourself courage to talk to someone? If you're not doing well, how's everyone else at the venue doing? So half your problem is find the right place to meet people. You solve that problem, gets a lot easier. Give yourself the best possible chance of meeting people that are healthy, confident, socially intelligent, capable of maintaining successful long-term relationships. Start thinking about where these kinds of people might spend their time. If you have people like this in your social circle, ask them what they do with their spare time. Ask them what they do for fun. Dance classes, art classes, entrepreneurial meetups, hiking groups, special interest conventions like Comic-Con or something like that, self-development seminars, CrossFit, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, non-profit organizations, volunteering groups, other forms of martial arts, hobbies, sports, social clubs, any sort of fun, healthy activity where people don't get drunk and they're not going there to hook up. They're going there for some other thing that betters their life. That's the formula. You add to that the thing you also enjoy doing. So you make sure that these are not randomly chosen activities, but you're going towards where your natural passions are. Well, that's like 75% of the work done for you. You're going to go in there for the right reasons, surrounded by people who think like you and are into the same shit as you, and everyone's sort of healthy and sober and just trying to live their best life. I mean, from there, introducing yourself is so easy, and connecting with people is so highly likely that really there's not much else you need to do. Now, of course, while this is a big part of the solution, if you're significantly fucked up psychologically or emotionally, then you're going to have to do something about that as well. You can't bring that baggage into a relationship and hope that the relationship will solve it. The relationship will enhance it. Whatever unresolved shit you've got, a relationship's going to pull that out of you. So the relationship is not your therapy. You get that shit sorted before you bring someone into your life. You don't rely on them. See, the thing is about all these great or better places to go meet people, there's still going to be some unhealthy, fucked up people there. Can't get rid of that. And so if you haven't done the work and then you go to these environments, guess who you're going to attract? You're going to get the dud in the group, aren't you? So let's try and avoid that. So the other half of solving the dating problem is getting your head straight. All right. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be the most confident person in the world, but you definitely need to be doing better than completely fucked up. No one, I'm talking to you red pill women hating guys here, nobody has a pattern of relationships with women that have gone badly without being the problem themselves, without having significant mental and emotional health issues. All right. Yeah, you might be able to function, hold down a job, and joke around with your mates. But if all your relationships are a disaster, you are a disaster in here. One horrible date, that's bad luck. A pattern, well, that's symptoms. Now, I'm not judging you. I've been there myself. All right. The reason I do this job is because I had to do so much fucking work on myself because I was such a fuck up. So I'm looking at you as like a younger brother, perhaps. You might even be older than me, but I'm looking at you as me earlier. I get it. And this is why I'm being hard on you about this. This is not women that are doing this to you. All right. There are plenty of healthy, great women out there. I've met heaps of them. Okay. But you're not going to meet them while you're fucked up. They will literally avoid you. You will limit your social circle to only meet the ones that are like you, and you'll think that they're all like that, and you'll be wrong. Now, of course, I can't put out a video that solves all your issues because you're going to be unique and you're not going to be like anybody else watching this video. And I can't do a one size fits all quick recovery program for anybody. Okay. It just doesn't work like that. But what maybe I can do is help you figure out where you need to go and what kind of things you need to do to deal with your unique situation psychologically so that you get into at least the fitness range that's necessary for a good relationship. Like I said, you can still be a bit fucked up and still have a few issues and be working on your attachment styles and all this kind of stuff and be good enough to get into a decent relationship and the two of you will work on it together. But you can't come in as an absolute train wreck. And bear in mind, email me, dan@brojo.org, if you want me to give you feedback on your specific situation and point you in the direction of good resources. Now, the upside to having a history of shitty relationships or no relationships or whatever it is there's going to be patterns, and patterns are going to be telling you what's true about you. Now, first thing I recommend you look into is attachment style theory. You can Google that, and there's just an abundance of shit around that. But understanding your attachment styles and how you react to people in certain situations will reveal the mystery as to how you self-sabotage many of your relationships without even being aware that it's happening. So if you typically pursue emotionally unavailable or otherwise unavailable people and you sabotage your relationships by preventing intimacy, then you probably have an avoidant attachment style. If you get too needy and desperate, you cling to toxic people and won't let them go, even if you're badly treated, then you probably have an anxious attachment style. And many people have elements of both depending on who they're with. You might chase until they show interest and then you push back. Attachment issues tend to lead you to attract other people who also have attachment issues. So you'll repel healthy people and it leaves you with a very shallow dating pool to choose from. And this is where you get that kind of cognitive bias where you think all women are the same. It's like, no, all the women you attract are the same for a good reason. You have not experienced a wider range of women. You just haven't. You might think you have. You've only been with those who are as fucked up as you are. That's the hardest truth I ever learned that set me on a course of recovery is that I'm exactly as healthy as every person I date. So if I'm with someone thinking, man, she is a fucking mess, I have to look in the mirror and go, I'm at least that bad. So what's wrong with me? It's nearly impossible to create a really healthy long-term relationship without a secure attachment style. You can have slips and trips and fumbles, but it's like the 80-20 principle. You got to be mostly healthy. You and your partner can be actively working on it together. That's good enough. But if one or both of you isn't doing the work and you're both fucked up, you're not going to have a chance. So you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be trying to equally put the effort in to improve. And it can actually be the bonding experience to grow together. My wife and I have worked on a lot of our issues together in the early days, and that's actually what sealed the relationship. So the next thing to look at is the problem of integrity. If you're fake in any way, which pretty much all of you watching are, then you've sabotaged your relationships right from the beginning. Okay, I've done a lot of study into divorce, why it happens, and so on. And I'm telling you right now, it happens in the first 3 months of dating. It just takes a long time to play out. You create a fake persona, even just a little bit to impress somebody. Then the other person signs up to that persona, not you. They now expect this because this is what you delivered up front. And you attract the kind of person who likes that rather than you. And it's only a matter of time before your incongruence starts to put cracks in that veneer and you get discovered and you are ultimately going to be disappointing. because you'll never be as good as the thing you pretended to be. And the extremely common version of this, which I specialize in, is nice guy syndrome. If you try to make people like you and consistently sacrifice your integrity to get positive responses from people, then you're a people pleaser. And people pleasers do very poorly in long-term relationships. They build up resentment from disrespecting themselves and blaming their partner for their own lack of assertiveness, while slowly but surely killing the attraction through the lack of tension, specifically sexual tension, that comes from actually having a backbone. If you're too agreeable and fake, you just can't help but slip into the friend zone at best, because sexuality is dynamic, it's polarizing. You can't be interesting and fun and exciting if you're just easygoing all the time. So people pleasers, nice guys, tend to attract either chaotic women, just wild, emotionally dysregulated women who are looking for a rock to cling to, that is, looking for someone who's suppressed emotionally, or they attract other people pleasers. And you basically just drive each other away with these easygoing behaviors. So you end up in endless conflict or codependence. And if you look back over your history and that's what you see, conflict and codependence, look at yourself in the mirror. How did you cause it? Now, another version of unhealthy men that I commonly see come, especially out of the red pill communities, is like the Machiavellian manipulators, the pickup artists. So nice guys genuinely like women and they want people to have a good life. It's underneath all of their like fucked upness is they're actually quite considerate of others and compassionate towards other people's suffering. But there are others who simply play people like a game just for their own short-term gratification, a psychopathic kind of approach to socializing. They're controlling, abusive, narcissistic. They obsess over status. They try to dominate women to establish a relationship or even just to get laid. They care only about their own fulfillment. I've studied psychopathy for decades. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that they do eventually become dissatisfied with being promiscuous. And they do eventually yearn for some sort of ongoing, consistent, stable relationship, somebody who'll be there with them while they get older. And of course, they've just done too much damage to their social circle to even make that happen. They're just too fucked up in the way they communicate with people and too abusive and parasitic for somebody who's healthy to ever want to stay with. So let's talk about the strategy that none of you have tried yet, because if you had, you wouldn't be watching this, you'd just be enjoying your relationship. Bold claim. Who knows if I'm right? So I've personally worked with hundreds of men who struggle with women. And not one of them has, at least until after they've worked with me, had really experimented with being fully honest and shameless with women. It's like the only strategy they haven't tried because it's not really a strategy at all. Ironically, to become truly successful in love, you need to let go of being successful in love. And I don't mean men going their own way, running away from women and treating vagina as scary. I mean, you still interact and embrace connecting with women, all right? You have a lot of women in your life and you're doing your best to be intimate with them. But rather than trying to make something happen, you're just going to be who you really are, flaws and all, and let whatever happens happen. You're going to let fate decide who's right for you, but you're going to give fate lots of opportunities, put it that way. It requires this massive paradigm shift where you move from focusing on getting outcomes from people, getting pleasurable results, to focusing on living with integrity and connecting deeply with people. It means prioritizing things like honesty, courage, humility over things like sex and impressing other men and getting a girlfriend. There'll be often times where you have to choose between two behaviors, one that would have integrity and one that would get results and make guys like you and so on. And you can actually sacrifice the second one for the first one. It's a total shift. You can't fake it. You can't pretend not to care as a method to get girls because you're still just being needy. You have to really let go of it working because it's not a strategy. At least it's not a strategy to get a girlfriend. It's a strategy to impress yourself with integrity, to create a relationship with yourself that's loving. And that's really most of the work. Because once you like you and you're okay with you, then somebody else can find it very easy to feel the same way. Be willing to lose the love and potential sex and admiration from a woman that you're interested in if that's what's required to have integrity. And that is really fucking attractive. So imagine a different kind of man just for a second, okay? Someone you've never been before. You spend all of your social time in healthy environments. Your week is filled with hobbies, classes, community enhancing activities. You're surrounded by healthy, confident people who are doing things for higher purposes, who have meaningful lives. They don't drink, they don't get high, they're not trying to slide into DMs. They hate all that shit. They're too busy living a good life. And while you're there with these people doing these activities, you're not trying to hook up with anybody. You're incredibly social, but without any attachment to actually being liked. You just do you and let people decide for themselves, right? You're known as the guy who speaks his mind. He does what's right rather than what's easy. He respects himself no matter what the cost is. That's the guy you're known as. You walk away from anyone who displays red flags, even if you had lots of positive feelings about them and look like an easy lay or whatever it is. You just walk away because you hold your self respect even higher than those short term gratifications. Imagine that guy. Imagine you're that guy. Do you really think that guy is destined for a terrible dating life? Do you really think that guy would be desperate enough to marry a toxic woman? You really think that guy wouldn't be attractive to women? Bold, confident, integrity? You think girls are just like, ooh, yuck, when they see that? Come on, use your sense. Have you ever really tried being that guy before for a consistent period of time and made that the actual focus? Being willing to sacrifice success with women in order to prioritize integrity and deep social connections. Have you ever really done that for like a year? Because if not, then there's still hope for you. It's what worked for me. If you want more support with this, get in touch, dan@brojo.org. We can look at your specific situation and I can give you some guidance on how to bring more integrity into your life without shitting yourself with terror. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.